have been battling climate change. Plastic waste, marine litter, burning of fossil fuels are causes of climate change that we know. But have you considered the impact of these foods on our environment? Food is everywhere. We cannot live without food. That is why food is essential for all living beings. It is hard to think that these delicious and satisfying foods are contributing to climate change. But what are the foods with low and high environmental impacts? In reality, price and quality are the usual things that consumers consider when they buy food. But did you know that and this requires rearing, farming, processing, transporting, and cooking? And in these processes, greenhouse gases were produced. Greenhouse gases trap the heat in the atmosphere and are a significant contributor to climate change. That is what we call food's carbon footprint.
Each food produces different carbon emission. Upon analyzing this figure, we can notice that emission from packaging, retailing, transporting, and processing have minimal differences only. We may think that transportation shares the largest greenhouse gases emission in our food carbon footprint, but the emission from transportation accounts for only less than 10%. But of course, we still have to be conscious of choosing where our foods come from because the farther the product travels, the higher its emission is, the greater the environmental damage. Remember that not all transportation is equal in terms of greenhouse gas because modes of transportation have much influence on the emission of transportation. Next, adding the greenhouse gas emission from animal feed or the growing and processing food for livestock is the reason why animal products have higher emission than vegetables and fruits. The largest emission, or 80% of greenhouse gas emission, comes from the land use and farming process. If you are asking why your favorite beef emits the largest emission compared to other foods, let us explore the journey of beef. One of the factors affecting the large emission of beef is land use. Land use is simply described as the land being used by humans for a specific purpose. In this case, it is for growing cows. Beef makes up to 24% of the world's meat consumption, yet requires 30 million square kilometers of land to produce. On the other hand, poultry accounts for 34% of global meat consumption and pork accounts for 40%. Yet poultry and pork production each use less than 2 million square kilometers of land. Therefore, cows take up a lot more space. But what is alarming is that the demand for beef increased in the past years. In the Philippines, estimated per capita consumption is increasing from 3.4 kg per capita consumption in 2020 to 3.7 kg in 2022. In 2020, the volume of production of cattle in the Philippines accounted for 229,127 metric tons and increased to 3% in just a year, accounting to 236,106 metric tons. As we talk about food, trees are cut down, and one reason for such might be the use of land for food production. Another contributing factor to the large emission of beef production is farming process. Did you know that animals like cows, sheep, and goats produce greenhouse gas that causes climate change? Cows, along with other animals, emit a greenhouse gas called methane, which is produced whenever they burp. It is likewise emitted from their manure. These can be attributed to the fact that cows digest grasses and plants. Methane is the next most abundant greenhouse gas, accounting for 16%. Although carbon dioxide is much more abundant in the atmosphere than methane, methane is more than 25 times as potent as carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. Aside from methane, nitrous oxide, which is another greenhouse gas, is also emitted from the manure of cows. The next factor contributing to the greenhouse gas emission that involves ruminant animals is their feed. Of course, before cows get to be eaten, they first need to eat. When it comes to their feed, chemical fertilizers are used on crops to ensure their growth. However, these fertilizers are likewise a source of nitrous oxide, another contributor to the concentration of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Once the crops are harvested, there is now a need for processing in order for them to be turned into animal feed. In processing the animal feed, utilization of energy and resources in transporting, packaging, and selling is inevitable. These activities, as being done, also contribute to greenhouse gas emission. Just like how crops turn into animal feed, the cow itself must be processed in order for it to become the beef that we know. This is where processing, as part of the food supply chain process, comes in. It also contributes to the overall emission of greenhouse gases. As we know, cow is a raw agricultural product. It needs to be processed to make it into a final product, which is beef. It undergoes a process wherein machines and equipment are used which require energy and resources. This utilization also results in the emission of greenhouse gases. Processing 1 kilogram of beef can emit 1.3 kilograms of carbon dioxide. After processing the finished product, it needs to be transported either to markets, firms, or directly to houses. The emission that comes from the vehicles used in transporting the beef adds up to the complex problem of cutting the carbon footprint of beef production. Vehicles not only emit carbon dioxide but also nitrous oxide and methane, among others, all of which are greenhouse gases. Beef needs to be packaged. Some beef is grounded, vacuum sealed, or traditionally packaged. Packaging beef requires machines and equipment depending on the type of packaging done. Electricity is needed in operating the machines and equipment. Generation of electricity has a high carbon footprint since traditional means of generating the same comes from burning fossil fuels. Packaging beef also requires plastics, styrofoams, and other disposable containers which have also undergone separate processing and production. Now that beef is packaged, it is ready to be sold to markets and stores. Beef needs to be stored and freezed to keep its freshness and prevent it from being spoiled. Otherwise, no one's gonna buy it. Even the way we sell beef likewise contributes to the concentration of greenhouse gas. Realizing how the production of beef contributes to the overall emission of greenhouse gas, does this mean that we should not eat beef at all, or anything in general? Of course not. Food is part of our daily life. Without it, we won't live. What we can do is to start making better food choices that are good not only for ourselves, not only for our bodies, but also for the environment.
Here are some tips to reduce food's carbon footprint. Vegan diet. A vegan diet contains only plants such as vegetables, grains, nuts, and fruits. Vegans do not eat food that come from animals, including dairy products and eggs. Researchers at the University of Oxford found that not eating meat and dairy products can reduce a person's carbon footprint by up to 73%. Eat less meat. If going vegan seems hard for you, another way is to at least cut down your meat consumption. By gradually eliminating your meat consumption, you save the animals, the environment, and your health. Organically raised animals are not given antibiotics, growth hormones, or fed animal byproducts. Organic or wild-raised animals are given more space to move around and access to the outdoors, which helps to keep them healthy. But why is organic food expensive? There are a lot of factors why organic food is more expensive than conventional food. First factor is that organic certification is expensive. Organic farmers also do not use chemicals, therefore, more manual labor is required. On top of that, organic agriculture is often executed on a somewhat smaller scale. This can also lead to a higher production cost, especially in processed food, because organic lacks the economies of scale. Grow your own food. Growing your own fruits and vegetables in your backyard is another brilliant idea. No backyard? No problem. You can also try container gardening or rooftop gardening. Growing your own food would have the lowest carbon footprint. This is way more nutritious and better for the environment as it reduces long-distance transportation of foods. Shop wisely. When buying foods, what are the things that you consider? Is it the price? The quality? You might also need to add these things on your list. Buying food in season. Whenever you buy food that is out of season or grown in another part of the region or country, you are encouraging long-distance shipping of the products, which contributes to the carbon emission. Use eco bags or reusable shopping bags. Avoid products with too much packaging. Buy products that are in recycled packaging. Another way to reduce the carbon emission of our food is to support local products. Supporting and buying local products keep the local farmers in business. This also strengthens the economy. More important, shopping from local markets reduces the food miles and decreases the pollution from transportation. Buying in local market is also less in carbon emission when it comes to storing the products. The food from supermarkets, malls, convenience stores, or any establishment like those are stored in an air-conditioned place which emits tons of greenhouse gases. The least but the best thing that we can do is to avoid food waste. About 1.3 billion tons of food produced globally gets wasted. In the Philippines, 1,717 metric tons of food is wasted each day. When we waste food, we also waste all the resources like energy and water that food takes to grow, harvest, transport, and package. Food waste also degrades the soil. The food wasted goes to the landfill, rots, and then produces methane, which is a significant cause of climate change. In reality, people will eat what they can access. People will buy what they can afford. Some people are privileged to plan their next meal and buy what they want. Some people are deprived to plan their next meal and will only buy what they need. Even though each of us have different situations to deal with, remember that we are all part of the environment. It is our responsibility to take care of it. It is our duty to be aware and be conscious of what we consume. Let us find our own ways on how we can help to fight climate change and protect the environment. These are one of the biggest things that we can do to help the planet. We must not only talk about it, but we must act on it.